Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Morgan Gist MacDonald. So Morgan is the founder of the publishing company called Paper Raven Books and the author of a book called Start Writing Your Book Today. Morgan is a longtime SPS partner and started as an SPS student. We'll talk about that a little bit. And is just doing just amazing things in the publishing world. Really, really cool. So today we're going to talk about a lot of things, but three specific things. We're going to talk about how to get discovered as an author. We're going to talk about how to get more reviews as an author on your books. And then number three, we're going to talk about building your readership and a whole lot of stuff in between. Morgan, welcome.
I'm super excited to be here, Chandler. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's kick it off with this. Why did you decide to write your first book? And in that process, why join self-publishing school? How'd you find this? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I was a freelance writing coach and editor. I worked with people to write their books, but it was in a Word document, right? Like I didn't do any of the like publishing or marketing or any of those pieces. And so I found that I could sit down and, put 20,000 words into a Word document and then had no clue what to do after that. And I wanted to grow my business, right? And so I had seen how other people were using books. They'd work with me, we'd write the book, they'd take it to a traditional publisher or hybrid publisher or self-publisher, whatever, and they would be growing their business. And I was like, dang, I should do that too. This is what I help other people do. So that was 20, I'm so used to saying 20, but actually it was 2000. It was like 2007, 2008 is when I started coaching people and then growing that just freelance, very on the side, until that 2015. And that's when I was like, dang it, book is happening this year. I found you, Chandler. I think you did like a 4-hour Google Hangout answering a bunch of questions. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I like this Chandler guy. He's really, in there doing it himself, helping people like from the ground up. So joined SPS to really get my book done. And I did. I launched it like June of 2015, that same year that I joined SPS. Wow. And it was the beginning really of an entirely new business. I didn't know it at the time that I was creating a new business trajectory, but it brought in clients and it brought in enough clients that I was like, I should hire editors to work with me. And then we had, plenty of clients coming back and saying, well, how do I self-publish? And I would point them back to SPS, but then some of them would say, actually, I want you to do it for me. Like, I don't want to learn how to do it. So that was kind of how we grew, is I just started basically implementing SPS for other people. And then we had kind of an advantage of we were a bunch of editors. So we could do all the developmental editing, copy editing, proofreading, all that jazz.
Nice. And so it sounds like that must have been that's first class of self-publishing, because we launched in February of 2015. I think it was. So you must have joined in February 2015. And then you said you had your book published by June
1st. Yeah.
No way. And that's so funny, because that 4 hour, and now that it's so funny, you may remember this. Actually, I don't think I've publicly mentioned this, but I'm pretty sure I did that 4 hour. It was the launch Google Hangout in Australia in February of 2015, because my brothers, it was like this really weird timing where my brother's band was touring in Australia. It's the only time they've ever toured in Australia. And so I wasn't going to miss that, but also so I just remember waking up at like 3 a.m. because of the time change. It's like the next day and all this stuff. And so, gosh, what a blast from the past. So it sounds like, so you had already had experience writing and coaching writing and all that stuff, but you wanted to learn the process of publishing, and then you wanted to use the process of self-publishing school to do your own book.
Yeah, because no one really knows how to publish a book on Amazon until you do it. Right. Yeah. There's so many different like bits and parts and doodads and file requirements and that's just like the publishing part, not even mentioning the strategy behind it,
Right.
Like you introduced me to this whole idea of keywords. I know you've had Dave Chesson on to really go deep into that, but like there's so much to like the way in which books are found now, that it was really important to like go through that with someone who's already done it.
Yeah. Oh, no doubt. That's great. So I want to take a step back, and then I want to get into some of the stuff on discoverability, getting more reviews, all that stuff. But how did you even get your background in writing and in helping people with writing and editing and all that stuff?
I just decided I was going to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed writing from an early age, high school
Yeah.
newspaper editor, English lit major, sociology major. I was actually getting a PhD in sociology, but I wasn't doing my own research. I was just helping everybody else with their papers.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, maybe I don't need to get a PhD for this. Maybe I should
Oh,
just
yeah.
help people write their papers. And so, yeah, I was working with people on dissertations and monographs, which is an academic form of a book and that sort of thing. And just left, I stayed long enough to get the master's because
Yeah.
I'm like, I should do that. But then left, and my husband was in law school and we were starting to have kids. And so I was really growing this on the side, but I was like, I have enough people who trust me as their editor from grad school and academia. So just started growing from referral based, essentially.
Yeah, that's great. And it sounds like, I mean, that's really, I mean, I think your story is an inspiration for folks who are writing, and either as on the side as while they're maybe in the real world and either getting a degree or doing a job, but where they have this passion for writing. And I think you're a great example of someone who did that and then didn't just say, hey, okay, I'm going to burn the boats and just like quit everything immediately, but just like slowly built that up. And then now it's just kind of been this rocket ship of getting to spend more and more time in the things that you love on the writing side of things.
Yeah. And writing the book was on the side. I mean, I still have my spreadsheet tracker where it was like, it was 1,000 words a day for,
Yeah.
a few weeks. And then sometimes some weeks it was 2,000 words a day when you kind of get going, and it was on the side. And it's always on the side, right? Whether you just experienced this, Chandler, you just relaunched, published, right? You whole bunch of new content. I was hey. Like you just experienced. I was like, oh, dang it. I have to like rewrite this whole book, and I'm already running a business and moving and all these other things. And it's like, it's always on the side.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. It's always on the side. You're never gonna. It's just like you've probably seen this with your business now and with working with a bunch of people. And I've definitely seen this with self-publishing school. Is most people think there's going to be this magical time where they've got no job, no kids, no responsibilities, a month in a writer's cabin, and except for like the first maybe 2 weeks of the pandemic. Which even then you had maybe none of the other things, but you did have your kids at home. So
that's right.
But except for that, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to get started before you're ready. And as the title of your book says, you're going to have to start writing your book today, not later. So I want to get into some of this beyond the writing piece, but let's touch on quickly toughest part of writing your first book and what was the most helpful part of working with us at Self-Publishing School?
Yeah, I think the toughest part was really deciding on like the scope of the book, because when you've been working with clients for, I don't even know, I guess it was 7 or 8 years at that point, it's like, there's a lot of things that I could talk about. Like, what does my reader really need to hear from me at this stage in their journey? And so I spent so many hours just thinking about it and not actually doing anything. So when I, made the decision, I'm signing up for this, SPS, whatever that is, which of course has turned into self-publishing school, and made that decision. We're starting today. I got my accountability buddy or whatever, that term. And then the mind map and the outline, it was like, okay, this is just happening now. We can't stay in like abstract land anymore. We're pulling this down, we're putting words on a page. And that was really helpful for me. Just, and you even see this in like the webinars, you make people do like a minute of, pulling ideas out. It's like, oh, now that I've got pen to paper, this is really happening. And it was just accelerated the whole process.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's fast forward to marketing and launching that book. And I think this will dovetail into some of the things that you mentioned that we could dive into as well. So what sold the most copies of your book, and what are your tips for authors to get discovered with their books?
Yeah, I will say that I started with no platform. Basically, I had a list of 50 to 70 sort of like referrals or people that I knew. And so this, like, my book was intended to start my platform. And I think that that's something that I have stayed in that space. Like, we still help authors who mostly are using the book to start their platform. They don't have huge lists, they don't have huge networks. And so it's kind of, there are some different strategies when you're starting that way. And for me, what has continued to move the needle the most is making sure that my book is optimized for Amazon. And I mean, there's probably at least a dozen ways that you would optimize, and you have other episodes on some of these sorts of things, like the keywords, the categories, the description, the cover, the subtitle. There's a lot of those pieces, but truly making sure that it is optimized for Amazon, because 70% of books are sold on the Amazon platform, and that's only increasing these days. And so that's kind of like step zero, like the foundation. And then I like to do a quarterly relaunch of my book. So, and you talk about this, like, the year of launching. I feel like I'm just always relaunching the same book over and over again. So every 90 days I go in, I set the ebook for free. Sometimes I don't do anything else. I just let the algorithm just sort of take it back through, pump some more juice through it, right? Because it's an algorithm. It needs a sample size of people who are downloading your book. And so if you can give it fresh downloads every 90 days, I always hit a bump right after that. And so why not I just set it on my Google Calendar, and once a quarter go in, set those days ahead of time. You can optimize that by planning to do paid promotion around that time, with those, newsletters and stuff that will talk about your book. We use Crave books for that, or podcast tour. A lot of your guests have talked about the power of podcasts, especially high visibility podcasts or very targeted perfect audience podcasts. If you can add some of those components in to get the book in front of new eyeballs, then that can just bump up the power of that relaunch. But yeah, every 90 days.
So the quarterly relaunch, I love that. That's a great idea. So that's on the discoverability side of things. Anything else that you would recommend, especially for new authors or authors without a platform, to get discovered on Amazon, or just get discovered as an author in general?
Yeah. I do think that Amazon is the big gorilla in the room right now.
Yeah.
It just is. Like, we love it, hate it, whatever. Like, bookstores are not selling as many books as they were. They may come up with an e-commerce platform, but right now Amazon has the Kindle, and that Kindle is locked down. Like, if there's ever another e-reader device that can compete with it, maybe, but they're buying up every patent of other e-readers and just squashing them, right? So, so right now it's Amazon, because they have the Kindle and because ebooks are still gaining in popularity. And so that's just something to sort of come to terms with and just be okay with for this season of like being an author. And probably the biggest block or issue that people have with the way that I recommend launching books is they want to make money off the launch. They want to sell their book at full price, or, okay, fine, I won't sell it at full price, but I want to sell it at least at 99 cents. And it's like, I understand that. There is a philosophy around selling books for full price, or selling books at least for 99 cents, so that you can get in the paid store. And if you guys, I mean, I'm sure y'all have read, published, or been around in the space to know that if your book is at least 99 cents and you're ranking in the Amazon store, you're in the paid side of the store, which is different than being in that free side of the store. But for the purposes of discoverability, my recommendation typically is, like, it's your first book, you're a debut author, we need eyeballs. And so let's get as many people to that book sales page so they can click the buy now button, right? When they click that button, it's a conversion. On the Amazon platform, a conversion is a conversion is a conversion. And so we're priming that algorithm with the type of person who's going to read your book. And the way that I sort of draw it out numerically for folks is, like, you could run a 99-cent campaign. You could set your ebook for 99 cents for a week, and average, you're probably going to get 200 people to buy the book, and that'd be great. You make $200. It's awesome. Or run a free campaign. Ebook is free for 5 days, and let's try to get like 2,000 people through that book. What's that going to do to the algorithm? It gives it a sample size of 2,000 people. So when that promotion rolls off, it's showing it to the right people. So that's kind of how I approach discoverability. It's essentially that free ebook campaign, getting as many eyeballs as you can to that ebook sales page.
Awesome. That's great. Let's talk reviews. I know you mentioned you've got some strategies on how to get reviews. Just looking right now, as of the time of recording, This podcast, you're at 1,176 reviews on your book, Start Writing Your Book Today, which, fun fact, I'm pretty sure is about 50 reviews ahead of published.
You have caught up, Chandler. You have
what's
caught
that?
up. You've caught up. No,
I'm almost. So guys, if you're listening to this or watching this, I need you to go leave a review right now and publish. Morgan and I are in a race. We're in a race to 2,000 reviews. And if you've read her book, obviously go leave a review on that book as well. But Morgan, how have you gotten so many reviews? What are your tips for authors for getting more reviews?
Yeah, go to page 157 of published.
Oh man, you're too good. You're too kind. Now I got to see what's on page 157.
That is the review sequence where you send set up the autoresponder. Okay, so we'll back up and there's something that's changed, Chandler, that both you and I need to change on our books that we haven't done yet, because it's brand new in the Amazon platform and it's really annoying for those of us who are using this strategy. Okay, so the basic strategy, right, and people have probably heard this from you already, is you have a freebie at the beginning of the book. So for nonfiction, and we work across genres in our company, so we work with nonfiction, memoir, and fiction. There's slightly different strategies for different folks, but nonfiction, you're usually looking at a PDF, a checklist, and an audiobook. I use the audiobook, it's great. Memoir or fiction, you're usually putting it actually at the end of the book, and it's like a preview of the next book or an alternate story or a character backstory or something like that. But it is a link that someone goes to, they provide their email address, and they get this free thing. They get the checklist, they get the audio MP3 file, they get the character backstory. And the first email is delivering the free thing. The second email, I do mine a week later, is like, hey, hope you loved the book. Could you leave a review? And provide the link straight to that review page. And then like 21 days after that, I send another email to ask for another review. Like, that's it. I don't ask for reviews. When I first launched the book, of course, you have a book launch team, you get your 20 best friends to leave you a review or whatever. And then as you get a bigger and bigger platform, instead of 20 best friends, you have 200 best friends or whatever. But like, other than the book launch team, all I've done is have this freebie that just asks people to leave a review. 98 to 99% of my reviews come from that like small sequence. I think it's because, and this is what I teach to our folks, is the combination of the quarterly relaunch with the freebie. Right? Because you're driving a couple thousand downloads every quarter, and some portion of those are going to click on that link and get the freebie, and then they're going to get those emails for the review. The thing that has changed is now Amazon doesn't show the first 10% in the look inside. They jump to the intro. Yeah. So both of us have our freebies like before that, where you'd have to like actually scroll back to see it. And so what I'm going to be doing is, and we're going to be doing this with all of our folks too, is putting the freebie after the intro, or in some way sort of making sure that that freebie is visible in the look inside preview. As soon as they click it, if they're reading, are they going to hit the freebie? I think that's important. Cool.
Nice. Awesome. And so the review sweeper, it sounds like it's one of the biggest ways, the review sweeper email sequence. Love it. So let's switch gears. Kind of third piece that I know that you mentioned is building readership, especially as a first-time author. What are your tips on doing that? So using the book to really build readership and build your platform as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately this that freebie does get you email subscribers, right? And so that is, I think, the foundation for anyone. And just to kind of like back up so that we realize how valuable this is for us as authors, right? When we sell our books on a retail platform, they're Amazon's customer, they're Barnes and Noble's customer, I'm in Denver, they're Tattered Covers customer, right? And so for almost the entire history of authorship, like, authors have not been directly connected to their own readers. They've always had to go through a bookstore. And I think in the next few years, we're going to see that really changing. I think we're going to see a lot more direct to consumer, like selling our books directly to our readers. And so for those of us who are kind of like seeing the writing on the wall, like, now is the time to really start growing our email list. And it's very easy to get sort of bogged down in all the ways. Like, if you Google how to grow an email list, like, you're dead gone, right? Because you could use Facebook ads or blogging or like all the things. And for us as authors, I think the first thing we use is our book. I think that, there's a lot of ways that you can use the book to grow an email list. What we've mentioned is just that freebie at the very beginning of the book. I know when you had Pat Flynn on, he talked about his companion course. For our fiction authors and memoir authors, we're recommending, and we didn't make this up, this is a term that exists in the self-publishing sort of indie world, a rapid release. So instead of releasing one really long novel, you actually break that into 3 pieces. And so you're releasing a trilogy. And at the end of book 1 is a link where you can get a preview of book 2. And at the end of book 2 is a link where you can get a preview of book 3. And at the end of book 3 is a link where you can get an alternate ending or a character backstory or whatever. And so just remember, just thinking about that before you actually hit publish, that it's not, yes, it's about reviews. And it's also about growing your readership, because the day is coming where you're going to be able to like sell things directly to your readers, whether that's courses or coaching, or whether that's merch and your next book, or whether that's our writing retreat or whatever. Like, these are the seeds that we're planting now so that we can be, among the next generation of successful authors, because the tide's turning.
Awesome. Now, how has your book help grow your business? Obviously, the business has been wildly successful over the last few years. How has it directly helped grow the business? And then what do you do to kind of take people from reading the book to becoming a customer of Paper Raven Books?
Yeah, I mean, it was instrumental in starting the business, really. So, 2015, I was still very on the side, freelance. I was making like 30 grand a year, something like that. And then released the book. And I mean, I saw immediately people were starting to email me. I just found your book on Amazon. I still get, I don't know, a couple dozen emails a week from people saying, oh, I read your book, or I'm at this part in your book. And I did ask people, hey, send me an email. Tell me why you're writing your book. Tell me when you get to this point,
cool.
like, tell me.
Nice.
So I did solicit like inside of the book, like, please send me an email, and people do. Like,
Yeah.
and so that was a conversation starter. And when I was early on in my business, of course, I responded to like every single email. Hey, let's get on the phone. Love to talk to you more. And so just open that conversation for direct sales, essentially. Now, the business has grown, right? So if I look back over the last few years, in 2018, we were at 250,000 a year. 2019, we were at 500,000 a year. 2020, we were at 850 a year. And I did that wrong. What year did we end? Anyway.
2021. So last year, yeah.
The last 3 years were 255, 850. And we're certainly going to cross 7 this year. And so like all of that momentum was really built off the book, the social proof that book has provided, the interview opportunities that book has provided. And now we actually use a book funnel to go directly out to consumers. Ours that we're using now, we've tested free plus shipping, we've tested paid. The paid is working for us, the $10 for the book plus a stack of bonuses. And then there's upsells on the back of that, as is normal, to replace your ad spend. And then those people, like, I send sales letters to them. They get invitations for coaching or getting on the phone with us. And so, yes, we have the Amazon that's always working for us. And now we've taken the successful book funnel, right? And I can stack it with all the reviews that we've gotten from Amazon, all that social proof, the praise blurbs, et cetera. And now that book funnel is really much more in our control because we're sending traffic to it.
Cool. And we've seen that too with the free plus shipping funnel and all that stuff. It's the book helps grow the business and just all the things that you said, but then it's a core part of growing the business. And then it's one of the top converting funnels inside the business. So it's kind of a double win there. I
do want to note something, Chandler, that's different about book funnels and other funnels. I have other funnels. Yeah. Right? We run webinars and that sort of thing. But the book funnel I love because you can legitimately ask for their address and their phone number.
Yes.
There's no reason to ask for a shipping address and phone number with any other kind of funnel.
Yeah.
And so we get high response on, of course, they're going to send us their address, but also their phone number too. And we call people,
Yeah.
So it's great.
When you have, you start building a list full of paying customers, not a list full of just subscribers, and people who, as we know, people who pay attention. And even if it's just paying for the book, they're now paying attention to what you have to say and what you have to offer. So kind of home stretch, couple final questions here, Morgan. So why should people start writing their book today?
You know, there there are a lot of people who say they want to write a book. Like I think the New York Times did some survey, who even knows, it's probably 20 years old by this point, where like 83% of Americans want to write a book. The number of people who actually sit down and do it is a pretty small number. Like less than 1% of the American population actually sits down and does it. I think you prove something to yourself. Like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm a person of action. I do what I say I'm going to do. Like you sit down, you say you're going to do it, and you do it. I think that's just vital for your own like self-confidence. And then also what I've seen for my authors is like you clarify your message. And certainly I experienced this, in 2015 when I was writing the book. You figure out really who you are, what's your core message, who are you really talking to, what's the story you're really telling. And there's no amount of like workshops and stuff that you can do that will get you as much clarity as just sitting down and writing 40,000 words. Maybe you don't keep all 40,000 words, but sit down and write 40,000 words and you are going to be so much clearer on what it is that you do. And yes, people speak books and there's ghostwriting, there's lots of other things, but even if you think that you might end up speaking or speaking out the book or working with a ghostwriter, that exercise of, you know what, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to tell myself about the book first, write 40,000 words, you are going to experience a level of clarity. And I think I'm feeling the urge for another book in the next couple of years. And I think I'm doing the same song and dance I did with my first book, where if I just think about it more, it'll come to me, like drop from the sky or something. So actually, like, screw it, sit down, write 40,000 words, and then you'll know what your book's about.
Yeah. Oh, big time. It's I just went through that. I mean, the second edition of Published, I've been sitting on that for at least a year, maybe longer. And then finally I just said, stop the madness. This has got to happen. This is one of the best things I can do to grow the business. And yeah, I'm going to have to say no to a lot of other things. And for really 90 days. I think I picked up a pen it was either August 31st or September 1st. And then the second edition launched December 14th. So it's about 100 days. I wanted to prove that it could be done at the highest level, but then also I just knew it needed to happen. And I think I think a lot of people can resonate with that, is finally getting to the point where it's like, all right, it's time to stop talking about it and start being about it, and start actually getting the book done. So that's really helpful, Morgan. What final question I have for you, knowing what you know now, what would be your parting piece of advice for the Morgan before 2015? So from years ago, and all the other Morgans out there who are thinking about writing and publishing their first book.
Yeah, I think especially because that version of Morgan was just working as a freelancer on the side, really just like I was, I'd started having kids at that point. I have 4 now, but I had, my first baby and then second baby. And it was just like, I wasn't sure that I had it in me, right? Like I'm juggling a lot of stuff. I'm trying to like grow this freelance business thing. Like, I'm just not sure now's the right time. I don't know if I have enough expertise. Like maybe I should work for another 10 years. Maybe I should like be somebody before I write the book. And what I discovered in actually writing the book was I do have really helpful things. It's not mind blowing. I mean, it's like thin, it's like 150 pages and it's not like, it's not like a tome of the best end all be all writing advice, but people read it and they read it quickly and they say, actually, this really was helpful for me. And so like letting go of it has to be perfect, it has to be the best. And it's like, I have a few years of experience. I've helped people do this. I'm further along the road, and just sit down and just try it. Just give it a shot. And you won't know until you write the first 10, 20,000 words, whether you've, whether this is the next thing for you. But probably if you're here, you'll probably write 10, 20,000 words and be like, yeah, I'm on fire now. And then you'll be unstoppable. So just sit down and just start the writing.
That's awesome. Morgan, I'm so proud of you. I'm so encouraged by you. I'm so inspired by you. It's just amazing seeing what you've done, what you've built, and what you're building. It's really, really, really cool to see. And it's inspiring to me. I'm sure a lot of other people, I'm sure a lot of other moms who see themselves in that story that you just described. And they're like, hold up, I'm on baby number 1 or baby number 2, and I'm on that journey and I'm doing this writing on the side and all those things. So that's just so cool. So kind of final thing, where can people go to find out about more about you, to grab your book, to check out Paper Raven books, all that good stuff?
Yep. So the book on Amazon is Start Writing Your Book Today, and Paper Raven Books is the company. And Chandler, I want to say thank you, because you were really the person who, I mean, maybe you didn't know me personally at that moment, but I felt like I really knew you, and you were such an encouragement and an inspiration to me when I needed it most. And you provided this container where I could really get my book done. And what that has created was this entirely new trajectory for me. And I wouldn't have done it on my own. So thank you.
That's awesome. Morgan, thank you. And not to deflect the compliment, because I appreciate the compliment, but you are the one who did the work. And so that's just so cool. And I'm very inspired by that. Guys, check out her book, check out Paper Raven Books. Morgan, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chandler.